Tigers won the championship, the NCAA football championship. So this is a pretty well-known school around the country. Tell us a little bit about the Purple and Gold as far as a sports school and really the growth of the baseball team.
The football team, it was just a phenomenal season. I don't know how much people followed it up there, but obviously down this way, and especially in the Southeastern Conference, and it was just a magical season. The things that they were able to accomplish, and from a team standpoint, as well as all the accolades that the players received, it was just one of those, everything lined up. So with that, one thing about Baton Rouge, we have very passionate fans. The tailgating, the coming to the stadium on Thursday night, getting ready for a Saturday game, and the cookouts and all that stuff, and filling that stadium. It's 100,000 plus in that stadium, and I'm telling you what, from the opening kickoff until the end, it's people are locked in, and so it's just a unique place. So with that carries over to our sport as well. I mean, we have, I feel like the best fans in college baseball. And I think if you look at the attendance that we've been able to have for the last 25 years, we've led the nation in attendance, and we average, over 10,000, fans a game.
Wow.
At the box. So with that, the expectations are really, really high, and which is something that you love, because people are going to show up and they want a good product, and they're going to let you know about it when they're not getting it. But it's a great environment. Our kids feed off the energy that our fans bring. So it's just it's a wonderful place to coach, and it's a great place to see a game if you're a fan of baseball.
The SEC as a whole really has kind of been known as a football conference, but again, them and the Pac-12 are really the baseball powerhouses. Do you think that makes it kind of undervalued how good SEC baseball is? Florida won a national title.
You look at the SEC every weekend, from a coaching standpoint, and we're looking at our schedule and laying out how the season's going to go, and you start off the conference and you go, okay, we got this weekend over, and then you look and say, oh my goodness, we got to go here, and then you got that weekend, and again, and it just never lets up. I mean, the college baseball has come so far in the last 30 years, and just the emphasis that schools are putting on it, the stadiums that are being built, it's just an unbelievable sport, especially down here in the South, and you're playing against big leaguers every weekend. I mean, if you look up and down the big league rosters, you're going to see several SEC players, and so we tell our guys that when we recruit that you come to LSU and you get in the SEC. You get a chance to see how good you are, because you're going to play against really good players that aren't at LSU, but you're playing against some really good competition. So you really get a feel of how good you can be.
Now, Alan, you were just talking about recruiting, and last week we had Coach Week. We were interviewing all different coaches from baseball to basketball to even football. And a lot of these coaches, when they talk, they were expressing to us, when they go into these homes, they sit down with the parents, and they don't try to sell the school, they try to sell the program. How do you, when you go in and you sit down with a family, or you're sitting down with other coaches trying to talk to the family and the player, how do you express LSU and the purple and gold?
No, that's you hit on it right there, man. It is about when we go in, or kids come to our campus, we're really not trying to sell LSU. I mean, in terms of the bricks and the mortar, so to speak,
right.
and the stadium. Yes, it is a great selling tool, just because they're going to play in an unbelievable stadium. But I really believe it's about who you're going to play with and who you're going to play for. And so it's got to be that connection with those kids. When they come in, they've got to feel like this is a place that I can see myself staying 3 to 4 years, depending on their draft status and things like that. But they're going to feel like it's their home. And so I think that's something critical. They've got to feel a connection with us as a coaching staff and as the players that they possibly would be playing with. And so, we try to really make that happen. And then if you want to go into the part about the program, we talk about our opportunities to go to Omaha. That's something that we're striving year in and year out to play for the national championship. And fortunately, in the history of our program, we've been to Omaha, I think it's 19 times over the last 30 years. And obviously we have 6 national championships in those, during those years. So you want to try to have that connection with the player from the standpoint of that personal development standpoint, and say, hey, listen, you're going to have a chance to go and compete for national championships. So those are things that we want our guys to want to be a part of. And so we recruit nationwide, and we're looking for kids that we feel like can come in and be difference makers in our program, and they want to buy into that philosophy of being at a place that they can excel and want to be somewhere. I think those are critical points to recruiting.
When you work with the pitchers and recruit the pitchers as well, between development, in-game stuff, what are some of the points of emphasis you have? Do you have a particular style of pitcher you like in terms of maybe the amount of pitches they have? What is your approach with all that when dealing with the development of these players, especially if they do stay for a 3 or 4 year tenure?
One of the big things for me that when I'm going out and evaluating a pitcher, and the thing that's happening now in recruiting is it's so early. We're recruiting these kids as freshmen and sophomores and juniors in high school, and so much more of development is going to come in those years. But that's the industry that we're in. So we're having to go out and make evaluations on young players. And so a lot of projection goes in. You're looking at their bodies, you're looking at their athleticism, you're looking at their release points and arm actions and things like that. So you're trying to gauge on, when you're trying to see a young player and say, where's this kid going to be 3 years from now in high school, and what is he going to mature into? Those are things that we're trying to do, and unfortunately there's no exact science. But hopefully from experience and having had guys before, that you can kind of, look at a guy and say, he reminds me of so-and-so, and hopefully that guy, he matures into that picture. So I think athleticism, we always get the bad rap as a pitcher of all pitchers on athletes. And I tell you, I really feel different about that. I think that pitchers are some of the best athletes. So when you're asking a guy to stand on a 10x slope and throw between 100 and 120 pitches in a game, and being able to have the precision to throw it over a 17-inch white thing consistently with different pitches, you better be athletic to do that. And so I think that's a key point. And anything you do, really, as a player, the athleticism is critical. So that's one of the things that I really try to go out and evaluate and see where I think a guy's going to get. And again, it's a tough thing to do, and you miss sometimes, but hopefully you get the kids that you feel like are going to come in and still have development to do, but their skill set is really good.
Tommy John's has been a really bad situation for the major leagues because a lot of these players are dealing with it. We just seen Noah Syndergaard go out with it. Well, Luis Severino here, just in New York. We've seen it this past year. And these guys are out for 12 months to possibly 15 months in total. Do you think Tommy John is the situation with Tommy John's, the reason behind this is because when they're youngsters, they're throwing too hard, they're throwing too much in the off season?
Boy, that is the old $1 million question that we're all trying to figure out. And I think we've made some great strides in the industry with the technology that we have, that we're able to monitor the things that are going on. Unfortunately, the game of baseball, and pitching in particular, is a very hard skill on and off. Okay, and And as I alluded to earlier, that, you're asking a guy to throw 100, 120 pitches in a game, and just especially at the big league level, those pitches are so, the intensity of every pitch in those games, it's just so hard. So, unfortunately, there's going to be injuries. Now, can we do things that are going to help? Yeah, I think that we're doing those things. We're trying to find that magic potion, and there is not one, I don't think, but I definitely believe that the things that are being implemented in the game to help stop some of this, I think we're making great strides. Now, why is it happening? I do believe kids today, they are throwing farther than they ever have, in my opinion. And some of them at an early age, they're reaching velocities that I think the human body was just not built for that. So I think it's a combination of that. I think it's a combination of probably some kids need to rest a little bit more in between the seasons that they're playing. I'm a big believer in this, that I love 2- and 3-way athletes. I love kids that, play football and baseball, or football and basketball and baseball, or whatever it is. I think I really believe that the crossover of those sports help you in each sport. And so and as I talked a minute ago about athleticism, I think that those sports help create that. So I think giving a time to let your arm rest pitching is a really, really critical aspect of hopefully helping curb some of this that's happening. And again, though, there's going to be injury. That's just a game. But I think that just to not look at what we can do as an industry would be foolish. And I think that if you look at across the country, people are really trying to do the best that they can, and to stop some of this from happening. And I do think that is, I think we're going to see some of this over the next few years. I think that we are going to get a handle on some of this from happening.
Alan, a lot of the top ERAs on your team this past season and the 2019 season were a lot of those hybrid starters, relievers, and maybe again limiting those guys' innings. Maybe that has helped them do well and also stay healthy. Do you think that is maybe something that you've had them do? Is it a managerial thing, or maybe is it something to help limit the injuries as a whole when dealing with the college season, especially again if these guys are going to end up getting drafted?
In this particular, in our position with the guys that we had in our rotation this year, we had our Friday night starter, and then of course we have our Saturday, Sunday starter, and those are legit starters. You build them up through the course of the season, and we try to do that from when we start in late February. We're trying to bring them along, and you hopefully you're opening the season and you're at about 75 to 80 pitches, and then your next outing, we want to increase and so forth. So that's our starters, and we're trying to do that, week in and week out. And we had one particular pitcher on our staff this year that we felt like he was a starting type pitcher, but we brought him along a little slower because he had some elbow issues. And so we did bring him along in that way that you're talking about. We kind of broke up our Friday night with our Friday night starter, and then we brought in the kid that we were trying to bring along slowly, that we would have him ready to go later in the year, possibly a starting role. So we were able to use our Friday night games with usually 2 guys. And when you do that, that's going to help you on the weekend, being able to take some of the stressful innings off your bullpen. You're going to stay fresher. You're going to stay stronger. Now, how does that happen is you got to have kids that are really skilled in order to do that. If you look at a big league staff, trying to find 5 starters at the major league level, that's really hard. I mean, to find 5 quality starters and keep them through the course of the season. I know you're playing 162 in the big leagues and you're playing 56 in college, but it's a hard task to be able to run guys out there every single weekend, just like it is in the big leagues. But we try to have a plan. We try to keep them on a pitch count. We try to watch with our eyes to see the fatigue factors going in and how their stuff looks and all the things that you try to do to keep guys healthy. So I think there's ways that can happen, and we would not be wise if we weren't doing that.